All right, folks, today we're talking about some research support for Hardgainer Solution and Hardgainer Solution 2.0. Boom, bam, boom, shakalaka laka. We're going to get into that, and you can see the Hardgainer book behind me, and we're going to talk about the research from the journal, European Journal of Applied Physiology. We'll just throw the abstract up there for you to see. But let me just say the reason why my Hardgainer Solution protocol and Hardgainer 2.0, the newer, latest version, are so wildly popular is because they work. And the reason the protocol works is because it's founded in solid principles of exercise science and exercise physiology, and not fancy vogue trends that come and go that you'll see on late night infomercials on the weekend, etc. A program based on solid principles is about the program itself and the program design, and that's really important stuff. But the other reason Hardgainer Solution Protocol and Hardgainer 2.0 work so well is because the protocol specifically designed for the Hardgainer trainee demographic, and that element is not about the program, it's about the person doing the program and their specific, what we call need state. Too often what happens is true hard gainers make the mistake of going out, finding out, looking for what some pro bodybuilder says to do in workouts, or what some steroid taking jacked up guy with a great physique drew up as a program for everyone else to follow. But seldom is a program like that going to work for a non-hard gainer. It's not going to work for long because it's designed for the non-hard gainer and not the true hard gainer. So it can even set a hard gainer trainee back or cause injuries and overuse syndromes and things like that. The true hard gainer has a very specific dilemma to consider. He's got to train consistently enough to accrue enough stimuli for muscle development, adaptive response, but must also delicately balance that sort of constant stimuli with adequate and necessary recovery and recuperation. Not training frequently enough results in no gains for the hard gainer, of course, not enough volume, not enough stimuli, and not enough resting and recovering results in lack of results for the hard gainer trainee as well. Things like burnout, chronic problems like tendinitis, overuse syndromes, and other scenarios. The hard gainer just doesn't see the results without the proper kind of rest and recuperation. From the get-go, I have said that this is the very specific dilemma for the hard gainer trainee. And from the get-go, I have also said that the hard gainer trainee have been focusing on the wrong area, as have been the experts who have been trying to help them. Their focus has always been on the workout stimulus and the various tactics that the pros use that the hard gainer should adopt. This has always been a very, very nearsighted, myopic approach and a mistake, and it is part of the paradigm blindness of the monkey see, monkey do nature of this industry. I mean, after all, if a program works for a 260-pound jacked up steroid cycling pro bodybuilder, then how can it not work for the natural hard gainer trainee at some level? But that's like saying if advanced calculus and advanced abstract math help you understand advanced physics better, then how can that not work for a person at a kindergarten level? It just makes no sense if you understand what's going on. This has always been the faulty logic that goes into the rationalizations of program design and implementation. So that's really important to consider. The real dilemma for the hard gainer has always been just how different their own internal biochemical and hormonal environments are for training and muscle development adaptations. The real dilemma for the hard gainer trainee is combining enough of the right kind of stimulus with enough of the right kind of necessary recovery and recuperation that ensures a desired adaptive response. In my original Hard Gainer book and full Hard Gainer online course, and now Hard Gainer 2.0, the emphasis for the hard gainer has to be on doing the right kind of workout specifically designed for them and their unique need state, as I said earlier. Within those workouts and the program itself, the emphasis has to be on inter and intra workout recovery, which is where this research becomes really, really pertinent, and we're going to get to that. Whole body training based on innervation training methodology, as you can read about in my ABLE approach, with a specific emphasis on inter and intra workout recovery, make the most sense for the Hardgainer trainee. And now this new research supports my position on this as well. So one of the best ways to ensure recovery both within workouts and between workouts is to not train to failure in a workout. Not on any set, not on any exercise, and certainly not during the course of the whole workout. And yet, so many of the tactics of hardcore bodybuilding workouts and workouts in general these days are about taking the body to and beyond failure. This is counterproductive for any trainee, but it's specifically devastating for the Hardgainer trainee because of their more sensitive and delicate internal biochemical and hormonal environment. So to reiterate, regarding the hard trainer trainee, my position has always been that they have a different and more sensitive neurological system, neuromuscular system, CNS system when it comes to physique development, and rather than only focusing on what kind of workouts to do and workout stimulus, we also need to devote equal focus to proper and adequate recovery for the Hardgainer trainee as well. And this research that we're going to explore, this speaks exactly to this notion of recovery in what I've been saying in the Hardgainer Solution book, the Hardgainer Solution online course, and what Hardgainer Solution 2.0 is actually even more aimed at. So boom on that one. So let's look at the research. Again, this is from the European Journal of Applied Physiology, December 2017. It's also appeared in a number of other journals as well, so you can look it up, but we'll put that up on the screen for you right now. And now look at this exact headline from the research. Training to failure slows down recovery up to 24 to 48 hours post-exercise. Now here are some important sections from the research abstract to read and understand, and I'll explain below why this is so important and pertinent and relative and relevant to the Hardgainer trainee. Their purpose, if you look at the purpose of the study, and we'll put this up on the screen as well in bold, to describe the acute and delayed time course of recovery following resistance training. So what we see here is that the research addresses both the immediate and the residual time frame of recovery, or as I explained it in the Hardgainer Solution course and book, this research addresses both the acute, what they call acute, and inter, as in delayed, time course of recovery of training to failure versus not training to failure. And this is really important. And don't forget the other things I talk about in terms of metabolism and hormonal systems and adaptive response is the three realms of time: the immediate, the residual, and the cumulative. And so what we see here is a study that addresses the immediate and the beginning phases of the residual. So you can see in the results section what they're talking about here. Training to muscle failure in each set, even when compared to completing the same total exercise volume, resulted in significantly higher acute decline of counter movement jump and velocity against V1 at 75% 1RM loads in both bench press and squat. In contrast, recovery from the 3x5, 6x5 protocols was significantly faster between 28 and 48 hour post-exercise compared to the other. Markers of acute recovery, ammonia and growth hormone, and markers of delayed recovery, creatine kinase, fatigue. So markers of these two types, fatigue, showed a markedly different course of recovery between the protocols, and again from the research, suggesting that training to failure slows down recovery up to 24 to 48 hours post-exercise. So remember, when you're all psyched out and inspired and motivated by that jacked up pro bodybuilder, Mr. Olympia contender that wrote out some program for you, factor in that most hard gainers aren't taking anabolic steroids, and the pro bodybuilders that inspire you are on insane amounts of anabolic steroids that change everything. So factor that in right away, because they don't have to think about recovery. Also factor in that usually the genetically blessed physiques, in terms of being able to respond easily to training, they're not going to understand the importance of recovery for the hard gainer trainee like I'm outlining for you here. So let's explain that markers of acute and delayed fatigue showed a markedly different course of recovery between protocols, suggesting that training to failure slows down recovery up to 24 to 48 hours post-exercise. Their conclusions, this is the research conclusions now, and we'll put this up for you to read. Resistance training leading to failure considerably increases the time needed for recovery of neuromuscular function and metabolic and hormonal homeostasis. Avoiding failure would allow athletes to be in better neuromuscular condition to undertake a new training session or competition in a shorter period of time. Let's read that conclusion again, put it up for you to read again, because it really speaks some importance to the hard gainer trainee. Resistance training leading to failure considerably increases the time needed for recovery of neuromuscular function and metabolic and hormonal homeostasis. Avoiding failure would allow athletes to be in a better neuromuscular condition to undertake a new training session or competition in a shorter period of time. Failure in all sets slowed down recovery. Again, this is from the research. Failure in all sets slowed down recovery up to 24 to 48 hours in comparison with the other groups, despite equal volume for the 6x5 protocol with no failure. And again, markers of acute and delayed fatigue also suggest that training to failure slows down recovery. So it's important not to train to failure for both intra-workout recovery within your workout to get proper recovery within your workout, but also to engage and ensure proper recovery between workouts so that you can work out more often and get the volume you need by training more often. However, every time you train to failure, you sabotage that exact intent. So implications for the hard gainer, I remind people again, if you took my program design masterclass course, it's all about how to design programs and methodology and things like that. I remind people that strategy is about program design, while tactics are about program implementation. Now for the hard gainer trainee specifically then, not training to failure is about both strategy and tactical implementation of workouts. Or to say this another way, let me use and employ one of my ableisms. We'll put this up for you, and hopefully you'll memorize it and use it all the time. Train like you've got something to accomplish, not like you've got something to prove. So all this stuff, oh, one more rep, and someone's standing behind you, and 2 more reps, and all that. Let the ego training go. Train with intelligence. Train like you've got something to accomplish, not like you've got something to prove. And look what I highlighted in bold above from the research. If avoiding failure, here's from the research again, if avoiding failure would allow athletes to be in better neuromuscular condition to undertake a new training session or competition in a shorter period of time, this is doubly important than for the hard gainer trainee who are already challenged in regards to adequate recovery and sensitive to overstimulation of certain training protocol. Yes, it's about training hard, but it's also about training smart. So it's about training to a level of invigoration, not training to a level of exhaustion. For the hard gainer trainee, it's better to undertrain than to risk being overtrained in a way that sabotages proper and effective recovery like this research shows. You should leave the gym feeling invigorated, not exhausted, regardless of what the overall attitude may be in your particular gym. Feeling like you could have done a little more in your workouts, that's a good thing, not a bad thing. And by training to failure, if a hard gainer trainee continually taps into and sabotages recovery over 24 to 48 hour periods, then subsequent workouts that take place within that period will have no anabolic trigger effects, and that's going to hinder and not induce muscle development and growth. So think about what they said. It hinders recovery, which affects metabolic and hormonal and biochemical systems. So this is really, really important research stuff, and it's stuff I wrote about in the original Hardgainer solution way before this research was even available. Now let's talk again. The dilemma for the Hardgainer has always been to combine adequate training volume, stimulus, with the necessary recovery required in order to garner permanent and sustainable results. This research points to the conclusions I've been arguing all along for the Hardgainer. It's nice that research comes along after the fact and reinforces the arguments that I've been saying. So it's about respecting your recovery needs and knowing that these needs are more pronounced for the Hardgainer than for the trainee for whom gains come easily, and who may even combine that with being a regular steroid cycling trainee. Is absolutely why you wouldn't want to listen to someone who's trying to tell you what to do. If you're a Hardgainer, they're not going to understand the sensitivity of your own inner workings and the importance of proper recuperation and recovery for the Hardgainer trainee. If training to failure, as is said in this research that I posted, if it hinders recovery for athletes, it's doubly devastating for the Hardgainer trainee. And you've got to get that through your noggin. So let's make sure we understand that. Now, let's talk about the relevance of this research to the new and improved, I don't want to say that I'm saying that tongue-in-cheek, but to the latest version of Hardgainer Solution, Hardgainer Solution 2.0. There's some major tweaks to HGS 2.0 that directly reflect the accompanying research. For Hardgainer 2.0, we took out any triplexes and we made the whole body workouts completely composed of biplexes. This then enhances the emphasis on intra-workout recovery. And also, except for that first exercise, Hardgainer workouts keep all exercises at 10 reps and above. Recovery, especially CNS, central nervous system, inter-workout recovery, is much more efficient for higher reps training, and by going as high as 20 reps, as 2.0 does regularly, muscles are getting plenty of stimulus without going too far to go beyond recovery requirements. So in Hardgainer 2.0, by keeping the reps low in the first exercise and by rotating the large body parts as the first exercise in each workout, from legs, chest, back, shoulders, legs, chest, back, shoulders, there's enough central nervous system stimulus in the strength training rep range of 5 sets of 6 while still surfing the reps curve for all the other exercises, 10 to 12, 12 to 15, 15 to 20, and 20. As I have argued previously, by doing only one single exercise per body part in a workout, this is also reflective of this research, and by not training to failure, those two things combined, as this research concludes, Hardgainer 2.0 is just about as perfect as it gets in terms of combining an adequate volume of workout stimulus, because it's only one exercise per body part, and you're not overdoing it with 8, 10, 12 sets per body part. So you combine that adequate amount of workout stimulus to engage an adaptive response while still keeping the special needs for recovery in mind for the Hardgainer. Really, really important stuff, and I'm glad this research underlines it all. When you combine all these elements together, what you produce is a program where the whole is greater than the sum of its parts. I say that a lot in this industry because it's true. This means the Hardgainer trainee can train more often, as they need to do, but has been one of their dilemmas for so long. But by only doing one exercise per body part within the workouts, and by not training to failure, and by keeping the reps higher instead of lower, you're not tapping too far into the recovery needs that would otherwise sabotage results, otherwise sabotage ongoing recovery and recuperation, which then sabotages adaptive response for muscle development. So this is something for sure most Hardgainers have likely done in the past. Too many sets for a body part, and then trying to train too often, or trying to train and mimic what non-Hardgainers advise you to do, while not considering adequate recuperation and recovery, and sort of getting involved in the whole macho manhood element of training that has no place in the gym. Leave your ego at the door. Now I want to also add a word. So that's the research. Again, from the European Journal of Applied Physiology. We'll put that up. But I want to talk about experience versus research for a minute, because it's important to point out something about real expertise here as well. Plenty of wannabe experts chase research without having any solid methodology of their own within which to filter that research. And then that keeps them research pinballing. So, oh, this says do that, this says do that, this says do that. Research and science should only inform, but not dictate solid methodology. The principles are the principles. Anyone can quote research. Making research fit into an existing methodology that abides in the principles, that's where true expertise comes in. And that's why research is so relevant, but research should inform and not dictate protocol. The fact is that I made the tweaks for Hardgainer 2.0 well before I was ever aware of this research. One of my clients sent me this research recently to just sort of point out the research reinforcement of the arguments I was making within the Hardgainer Solution Protocol all along about the Hardgainer trainee and their specific dilemmas. So I'm glad they sent the research, but I was already making these arguments before the research existed. We made the tweaks from the original Hardgainer solution that you see behind me to Hardgainer Solution 2.0 to listening to the feedback we received from hundreds of people who wrote in and commented and sent me feedback regarding Hardgainer, as well as my own clients, as well as my own body, and as well as just me liking to practice tweakology here and there and falling into something that was even as effective or maybe more effective, but definitely different, but still based on the original Hardgainer solution. I'm always looking to make something better and improve a product when I can. We could say that Hardgainer Solution 2.0 is a new and improved version of the original, but that wouldn't be fair to the original, because the Hardgainer Solution original, the one you see behind me, it's still a wonderful and viable program for the Hardgainer trainee. It still stays true to the variables discussed above, but Hardgainer 2.0 just takes this notion of not training to failure and improving intra and inter-workout markers for recovery to a deeper level of importance and prominence within the workouts. Hardgainer 2.0 is more committed to the physique development aspect of the program and less focused on the metabolic stimulus of the program, whereas the original was focused on both. But both program workout versions of Hardgainer Solution are tremendously effective. That's why it was a #1 bestseller on Amazon. We should throw that up on the screen way before I did 2.0. But myself, I not only developed 2.0, but I learned by doing. I performed Hardgainer Solution 2.0 for a good 8 months, tweaking things all along the way until I was satisfied with the final product. Now, I will point out some caveats about the research above. No research in exercise and training is going to be perfect. It is a lot to do with studies with exercise protocols. This is true more so than with studies in nutrition and diet protocols, etc. I wish the sample size of the group used and tested was larger. I wish the group that was tested were specifically trainees who identified themselves as hard gainers and maybe had more training experience. That would have been a very revealing study to do, and maybe it'll be done in the future. But the most important element about the research that I need to point out that I wish was different were the exercises selected. It's no surprise because it's a standard go-to really in a lot of the research, but it's no surprise the researchers used the bench press and the squat for the research. But these exercises are compound exercise, and both these exercises also stress the central nervous system more so than isolated body part exercises would likely do. And that affects kind of the intra workout recovery elements as well. But that's just some expert speculation of my own regarding this research, if you will, and how if someone was going to repeat the research. how I would suggest they change it in the future. But the research does indeed point out the effectiveness for recovery by not training to failure. Not only the acute, but the delayed elements of recovery. So not only the immediate, but the residual elements that we need to consider for the hard gainers. So I would have liked to have seen this research done on more localized, isolated muscle groups of exercises and rep ranges. For the hard gainer, central nervous system fatigue is an important thing to consider for sure, as it is with all trainees, of course, but specifically for the hard gainer trainee, I'd have liked to have seen exercises that were more specifically targeted toward measuring localized neuromuscular fatigue and recovery elements rather than blending them sort of into this way with central nervous system fatigue by using certain rep protocols and the bench press and squat as the testing variables. So that may be nitpicky on my part, but I don't want it suggested that I'm cherry picking research. But it's worth pointing out because I've indeed extrapolated and generalized from this study to illustrate how this study reflects on the importance of the hard gainer trainee to focus on intra and inter workout recovery so that adequate training stimulus and volume can finally be pursued in an intelligent way by the hard gainer trainee without sabotaging recovery and thereby sabotaging results. That has been the hard gainer dilemma. They can't recover enough to do the volume of training they need to do in order to develop their muscles. And now we see by not training to failure and structuring workouts in a specific way, like whole body workouts, they can do back-to-back training sessions, not train to failure, surf the reps curve, and solve that dilemma of adequate volume paired with adequate recovery. So as this research points out, again from the European Journal of Applied Physiology, December 2017, not training to failure improves not only intra-workout recovery, but inter-workout recovery as well. And both of these elements are essentials in order for the hard gainer trainee to be able to train with adequate volume without self-sabotaging ongoing results. So Hard Gainer Solution Original, or now Hard Gainer Solution 2.0, boom shakalaka laka, boom boom. Take advantage of the protocol. I'm sure you'll love it, as most people love the original. This is just taking the original to kind of like a next level, if you will, and it focuses more on these elements of physique development and less on the metabolic elements. So there you go. More research support for the Hard Gainer Solution and Hard Gainer Solution 2.0, and I will see you all in the next video.